Hi, my name is Amanda Panacea, and you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This is a community for self-healers, biohackers, practitioners, and any other helping professionals. You're in the right place if you're seeking conversations about how pain becomes passion, the connection between physical, energetic, mental, and our spiritual self, finding your body's ancient wisdom, the latest biohacking technologies, clinical research, and if you just want to nerd out about complex biochemistry and quantum physics. But this is also for entrepreneurs who seek infinite abundance and a supportive community. So pour a cup of King coffee or Sisters tea and let's join the revolution. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Healer Revolution podcast. I am your host, Amanda Panacea, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Sarah Doyle. Hi, Dr. Sarah. How are you?
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so you have a really cool background, and we met actually in Miami. So you're actually here too. After I hurt my back. I had herniated a disc, and you're a doctor of physical therapy. And so I got one of your ads on Instagram, and I was like, oh, this is exactly what I needed. Thank you, Instagram, of course, for leading me exactly what I needed. But then when we met, you had this really incredible advice to switch around some of the ways that I was eating to support circadian rhythm health. And I am so big into that already. So I was really fascinated. But before we get into all of that and how that works, I'd love to hear your story, how you became certified in functional medicine and a doctor of physical therapy and just purely knowledgeable in so many different aspects of our health. So what is your background?
Thank you. So like a lot of healthcare practitioners, I started with my own struggle in health. Originally, I had a real estate license and I worked in real estate, and I had to take an antibiotic for recurrent UTIs, which has happened to many people. The particular antibiotic was Cipro. So, I mean, now that prescription, they're hesitant to put a black box warning on it, but there's a lot of side effects from that, not just tendinopathies, but like full on disability with chronic fatigue syndrome, major mitochondrial dysfunction, major joint problems that are not consistent with other autoimmune diseases. So that drug, I had no food allergies before that. After I took that drug, I thought I had Crohn's disease. I was so sick. It seemed like everything I ate made me sick. And this was back in 2002 when there wasn't a whole lot of internet-based wellness. I went to the vitamin store, I picked up books there, and that's how I started on my path. So I worked as a stressed out realtor. And then there was a point in time where I had a listing, and it was after a hurricane, and it had one of those like blue tarps on the roof. It was one of those years where Florida was hit really hard from every angle, and the permits were way backed up. There was not enough contractors, and I finally found a cash buyer for this property, but I couldn't find my seller because he ran off with the insurance check. So I said, Sarah, you deserve better. You deserve to work in an environment with more integrity. So that's when I started going back to school, and I was doing the pre-med stuff. I was unsure if I wanted to be a DO, a PharmD. I like chemistry, and organic chemistry, ironically, I'm good at because you just draw pictures. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but when I looked at how much time it was going to take, I was like, well, if I graduate from PT school, I'll be able to own my own clinic, work for myself, and I'll be in my 30s. If I go all the way to DO or MD, I'm going to be in my 40s. And I was like, that is a long time to wait, and it's a long time to delay your income and your retirement and all that. So I ended up working in PT, and my first job was in Mount Sinai Medical Center. I floated to every unit of the hospital, which gave me an interesting perspective. And I noticed that what you ate, like certain cultures were on certain floors. And I was like, why is that? I'm like, oh, duh, because of diet, because of what they eat. So I noticed that in the very beginning, we have like maybe one chapter on vitamins in the allopathic medicine model, maybe 3 questions on my boards. So as I went through school, I ended up working, as I went through my hospital career, I ended up working in oncology. And that's like the epitome of how pharmaceuticals murder people. Like, if you want to see just like big pharma bankrupt families and destroy lives, go work in an oncology unit. Heartbreaking, to say the least. So I did that. And then I was furloughed during COVID for 4 months. And then that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to do this functional medicine that I've been thinking about for years. And so I found a school that would let me start right away and work at my own pace. And I just crammed it all in. And then I was pulled back to work in COVID ICU. And again, it was like, you watch the abuse of pharmaceutical companies and the denial of alternative drugs, and people just never would see their families again. Like, I prayed with so many people that would never see their families again because they weren't allowed to see people. They were too weak to hold up a phone to FaceTime their family, and it's like, that was just, I developed anxiety really bad. And I'm like, I felt I was in the ICU feeling like I'm gonna faint, and I'm pep talking myself like, Sarah, you're not the one whose vitals are crashing, it's your patient. But that's when I said, okay, I've got to make a change. This job is going to kill me. And I actually did one of my tests, my own test. At that time, I was working with a saliva panel to check your diurnal cortisol pattern and your sex hormones. And my cortisol, like with this particular test, like the 4 readings together were supposed to add up to 25, and mine were like over 100. And I said, holy cow. I was like, no wonder I have palpitations. Like, this job is going to kill me. So that's when I made the decision to just go full into the online coaching. And that's been like the best thing for me, getting out of the hospital.
Yes.
Amazing. Like, I was kind of addicted to the adrenaline rush of working in the ICU, and I thought I would never quit that. But, I can really change lives without being encumbered by allopathic medicine. Like, when I was in the hospital, people would say, how can they send me home? They don't even know what's wrong with me. Like, isn't there anything I can do?
Yeah.
And, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot you can do, but I'll just telling you.
Yeah.
So, now I have the ability to treat people the way they needed to be treated. And because I'm a cash-based practice, I'm not encumbered by the regulations of insurance. So that helps, increase and better the patient outcomes.
Yeah, I have a very similar story. And I think a lot of people do when they go into helping professionals. You kind of have to do that, like the worst job ever, which is the hospital systems. And so unfortunately, you have people who are brand new, maybe amazing at their careers, are very brilliant, but there's so much rules and regulations. Like for me in a psychiatric hospital, I would be like, I can't tell you this on paper, but go ahead and try this diet. And not write anything down that I was recommending to people. And that's really when I was like, hospitals are barbaric. Like, this is tragic that we treat people like this. So I totally understand.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the food, because this is where you have this incredible book that people can listen to very cheap or even free on Audible. And it's called the 7X Method. Tell us where this began, how you learned about this, and what it is.
Great. Yeah, life-changing. So also during 2020, when I was furloughed, I went to Central America because I couldn't afford a biological dentist in the United States. I mean, what I got for 10 grand over there, they wanted between 30 and 40 in the United States. I don't know why dentistry is treated as a luxury in this country, because it's very intricately aligned with all your body's systems. But it was a total blessing because I was introduced to a liaison who works with a quantic medicine program in Central America, where they have this healing center. Now it was 49 years when I met them. And so now it's like over 50 years, 53 years that it's been open, and people go there to heal from cancer and other chronic diseases, chronic inflammatory diseases. And while I was not provided with the protocols for healing cancers, they don't really want to share that stuff with Americans. They want to stay under the radar. But I did get the privilege of reproducing the timed eating protocols. I just made some tweaks for our food supply. Like in Central America, they don't allow GMOs and stuff like they do here. So, for example, in this country, grains are heavily full of pesticides and molds the way they're stored. And so people will frequently test high in mycotoxins because of those foods. So I pull those out of the diet. But this diet was amazing for me. It's all based on circadian science, which you mentioned. But the biggest thing I had to do was unlearn everything I've been taught. So we've been taught to count. We've been taught to count calories, count macros, count this, count that. And it's still not adding up. Like people are fat. It's like a calorie is not a calorie. I mean, obviously eating too much is too much, but people are overweight and they're even just a little overweight and they're frustrated and they're struggling. So the biggest difference is that there's no calories, there's no macros. What they found was there are 7 different frequencies of food, and food groups food is put into 7 food groups based on their energetic frequency. So if you remember science class, we had that periodic table, on one side is hydrogen and the other side is the other one. One's -1, -4, +, and everything falls because of electric charge. So the food is like this too. And it goes by color, which it's like the rainbow, right? And we know when we look at the rainbow in the sky, we see different colors because those are different energetic wavelengths. And the same thing it's the same with food. So the other thing that they discovered was that our organs and systems take turns resting and peaking, which I never would have thought about, but it totally makes sense. So you have your main circadian rhythm, we're pretty familiar. We open our eyes to the responsive sun and our pineal gland will stop producing melatonin. And then 30 minutes later, we get that burst of cortisol from our adrenal glands called the cortisol awakening response. And that is like our main circadian rhythm. So I always thought, well, I guess don't all of our organs sleep at night too? No, they don't. So they take turns resting and peaking. Kind of like the concept where, you go to the gym, you work hard, you get off the gym, you eat, and then you rest, and then you repeat. Well, all of our organs and systems do this too. For example, the first group is purple. Purple group is purple foods, purple berries, dark chocolate, cacao, coffee. These foods have electropulsating startup energy. And these foods nurture our pineal gland, our DNA synthesis, and our pituitary gland. So this makes sense because, and this is from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. This makes sense because we know that the pituitary gland gets off its work shift and it wants nourishment because it's going to go rest. And then same thing with the thyroid. I mean, it's commonly known that people with thyroid problems feel tired in the afternoon, they feel cold, like that's the worst time. Well, the thyroid has a circadian rhythm of pumping out T4. T4 is what the thyroid makes, and it converts into T3 in the cells, the tissues, mainly liver, but all of our tissues. So the thyroid is part of the blue group, and that is nourishment between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. And those blue foods are like water-based foods. And that also supports our hyaluronic acid production. So for all those people who are like, oh, I don't eat until 1 p.m., they're starving their pineal gland, pituitary gland, DNA, and hyaluronic acid production. Hello, you're aging. And you're starving your thyroid of needed nutrition. And this is actually supported by clinical studies. So when I went through all the information they sent me, I wrote it down and started using in my coaching program. And all my clients are like, I'm losing a pound in a week. Like, because I would order their tests when they would sign up, and then they would do the 7X method while they're waiting for their test to arrive. And they're like, I went down a pant size in a week, or like my knee stopped hurting. Like my carpal tunnel is like, what's going on? They're like, or I had this one patient that was severely constipated. She lost like 10 pounds in like 2 weeks. And it was
Wow.
all poop. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, some water weight too, but
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, so I went from making just like a manuscript for my coaching clients to, and it just turned into a full-on book where I looked for research to support it. The third group is the green group, and this is kinetic energy. This supports our sensory organs and our kidneys. So these are green foods like everything, broccoli, salads. And this also coordinates with the dominant frequency from the sun. So around, this is the other thing. So they use spectrophotometry to measure it. So at lunchtime, the dominant wavelength from the sun is actually green. So it all coordinates. Then the next group is the red group, and these are thermic, energetic foods, and that's from 1 to 3 p.m. And this nourishes our adrenals, our heart. Is our lungs on this? I can't remember. I have to look at my chart. But this makes sense because in the research, they say that, when we wake up, our adrenals pump out cortisol in the morning, 30 minutes after we wake up, the cortisol awakening response. So those levels should be like 20 times what they are when you go to bed. And so the research actually says that the adrenal glands are at their lowest, or that they need nourishment 6 hours after their peak in activity. So there is like some research out there.
Yeah.
The next group is the orange group. These are all vegetables that aren't green. These are all the lectins that Dr. Gundry tells you not to eat. These are like, your tomatoes, your eggplant. This is like where olives go, potatoes, anything that's not green. Even like avocados. So some vegetables are a little tricky. They can be both. Like an avocado is green on the outside. It can be in the green group, but it's yellow on the inside. So it can be in that yellow group with the vegetables between 3 and 5. I think I misspoke earlier and said orange, but it's yellow. Yellow is from 3 to 5.
Okay.
Orange is 5 to 6. Yeah, sorry. I misspoke.
Like the Roy G. Biv.
Yeah, well, it doesn't flow that way.
Oh, it doesn't
flow that way. And the way they have the chakras is different too. I didn't even get into that in my book, but if you keep with this diet for a long time, your cognition and your connection to the other world and spirituality will increase. It's pretty cool. So anyways, the yellow group is all the non-green vegetables, and that will benefit your RNA synthesis. So that's where we get, the hot topic today is like, what's your biological age versus your chronological age? And there's tests out there, like Brian Johnson and these other influencers. They talk about that. What they do is they measure telomere length. So if you're like, what's a telomere? So if you have like shoelaces, and say your shoelaces are RNA, the little plastic things on the end that keep it from unraveling, those are your telomeres. So these non-green vegetables between 3 and 5 p.m. help nourish those telomeres and also prevent aging. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Then the orange group is from 5 to 6, and this is the group that stimulates our digestive system. And this is, when I was studying in Central America, this is really important for people in the setting of insulin resistance and diabetes, that it turns on the pancreas, because the pancreas wants to turn off rhythmically and go to bed at like 9 p.m. So this is when you nourish it. And the foods in this group are like lentils and beans, and then herbal teas. And so when I looked this up in research, what I found was these foods produce short chain fatty acids in the colon, which is acetate, propionate, and butyrate. And so that coordinates. So, so like I said, I looked for research that would support everything they did. And then the last group from 6 to 7 p.m. is the white foods group. So these are our comfort foods. And that, when you feel stressed out, you're like, well, I just want mashed potatoes, or I just want mac and cheese, or, I just want a little pasta with butter. Like, I don't know, that's what I want when I feel like stressed out and I had a bad day. And this is because these white foods, like, and you can have yuca, rice, potatoes. I mean, obviously pasta, because it's processed, and like, you don't want to eat cake, like really ever, but like, bread doesn't really have much nutrition, but I mean, there's variations, but so these are our comfort foods that will nourish our nervous system and prepare your body for sleep. So this also makes sense because you look at people who eat like a bunch of pasta at lunch. Guess what? They're grabbing coffee to stay awake in the afternoon. Or, you know, all of our Latin friends down here having their beans and rice, and then they walk around with their cafecitos. Like
Yeah.
the evidence is everywhere, right? Anecdotally. But then, you know, I searched and researched as much as I can. What I did find that was interesting was in 2017, the Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology was awarded to 3 scientists who discovered this clock gene in all of our cells. So originally we just thought that we had like, you know, our brain wake, our sleep wake cycle, but they did research on like flies. I forgot what kind of flies, like not fruit flies, something like that. And so they discovered that we have these genes everywhere, even plants. Like there's certain plants that open during the day and close at night. And even if you take away that light stimulus and put the plant in a dark room for 5 days, they still open and close. And because even plants have the clock genes. So our research, we're starting, you know, we're behind.
Yeah.
But this diet helped me so much with a lot of I had so many food sensitivities before, and I always had trouble falling asleep. I mean, unless I had like a fever, I could not fall asleep before midnight to kill me. And then,
Wow.
you know, getting up in the morning, I always needed like 3 alarms. I was one of those 3 alarm people, and I still would be late,
Yeah.
you know. And I will tell you, this diet totally changed my circadian. Like I sleep better. I go to bed at like 10:30 or 11, like a normal person. I wake up before my alarm, or sometimes just need 1 alarm, like a normal person. It totally changed my digestion. I was able to eat foods I couldn't eat before, and it totally fixed my sleep. So that's what it did for me. What it's done for other people is taken away psoriasis, it's taken away dandruff, it's taken away carpal tunnel, it's taken away knee pain, it's taken away, like I said, insomnia. So I hope that I wrote it. I mean, it was expensive. I mean, doing an Audible and being in a sound booth or in producer, like spent a lot of money on it. I mean, I'm gonna have to sell like 20,000 copies to break even. Like,
Wow. Yeah.
like the margins are like $1 a book. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not, I didn't do it to make money. I did it because I felt like God charged me to share it with the world. I think I felt like there was a reason why I went to that particular dentist after like searching online for, you know, dental travel, dental tourism. You know, I felt like there was a reason why he did that, and that it was like an obligation. Like I had to share it with people.
Yeah, I love this so much. I agree. And I think the circadian rhythm stuff it's so sad that it's so behind, because you have now like Dr. Huberman and Dr. Jack Cruz that are really talking about how important it is. And even like what you're explaining now, I've listened to lots of other people on how to eat for circadian rhythms, and it's not this. So there's like even a disconnect there. And I think this research is going to be so powerful. I have a couple of questions about it though. So you mentioned there's these 7 time frames where we want to eat these specific types of food that fall into these specific categories. To get the benefit, do you need to eat 7 times a day, or do you still eat your 3 meals a day? It just depends on like what time of day you're eating, what you're going to eat.
That's a great question. So in the book, I talk about like a 7-day reset and a modified. For people who have autoimmune issues, I tell them to try to have 7 small meals a day to get the greatest benefit. I mean, if you're really struggling, but like in reality, how are you going to eat 7 times a day? So I did partner with a kosher kitchen in Miami that provided a juice cleanse. So there's 6 of the 7 groups. You just need a little, like you eat a normal dinner, like chicken and rice, which that leads me to another point. So you can, all right. So in reality, I probably eat 4 or 5 times a day, and I eat what I try to get the main thing that I'm eating to be from that group. Like if I'm eating at 3 o'clock, well, that's right by the red group and the yellow group, which is proteins, animal proteins, and mushrooms actually go in there. And then the non-green vegetables. So that's what I'll have, like try to really load up on the red meat at that time of day. You don't want to eat red meat at dinner, but you can layer easier to digest proteins at night. So like if you're having your white food group, like the whatever, mashed potatoes or pasta or rice or yuca, whatever, you can layer on like, shrimp or fish or chicken, because they're white. I mean, they're meats. So you could eat them in the red group or you could eat them in the white group. So yeah, like reality was at 12 o'clock right now. So if I was going to eat right now, I would have something green, like a salad, but it's close to the 1 o'clock group. I mean, we have daylight savings. The sun is changing the time of day that it rises every day. So, I mean, try to get it with like the group next to it. Eating a salad with like berries on it right now might ferment and cause my stomach some upset. Like the berries were like 7 to 9 a.m. Eating chocolate after dinner. No, have chocolate with your coffee for breakfast. Like, so take it with a grain of salt, because I mean, there's like a Schumann resonance, like our time is this time. Like I always thought time was like an abstract concept. And then I wrote this book. I'm like, your whole book is about time. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of what I was trying to do. And some of the food groups, like you mentioned, like you can have herbal tea in one of them to count. So it's not like you have to eat like all day long consistently.
Right.
One of the biggest things that was a big change for me was doing the green smoothie. I had done pretty much like a full carnivore diet when my skin was just astronomically inflamed, and that actually really helped. But I've kind of like never really introduced smoothies back. I used to do a lot of smoothies. I was actually vegan, vegetarian for like 10 years. So I stopped all that because that didn't work either. And just adding those back in around the time period for the green group, I feel like the inflammation has gone way down. In the last couple of months, I lost 5 pounds. Now I do a lot of other things on top of this. And I
That's great.
also, yes, thank you. Since I hurt my back, I was like, you have to commit to doing more yoga. Like you have to wake up earlier and go to the morning class. So I've made some other changes, but definitely not being perfect with this diet, but really trying to do the best I can, basically.
That's
And
what life is. Nobody's
right.
ever perfect. It's really hard. But like if I have a long road trip and I know that I need to be alert for like 8 or 9 hours, I will pack 7 small snacks. I'll be alert the whole time. And I won't need coffee or energy drinks like for that. Or if I know that I have a really long day, like I have that juice cleanse. So like you said, you don't have to eat. I have it's juices from every group. So as long as you get the majority of the nutrients from the green group during the green time or the blue group during the blue time, like then sometimes I just have crazy days, and I have that 7-day reset sitting in my freezer, and I just usually defrost like one day when I know I can't meal prep or eat. I keep it for that. I mean, I offer the 7-day reset on my website. You can do a full-on juice cleanse. 7 days is a long time to do a juice cleanse. So I
Yeah.
would, during lunchtime, there's a green drink, but I also add like a salad with protein. Like you can have steak salad every day if you want, unless you're a blood type A. That might be a little hard on your gallbladder. So in that book, I integrated the blood type diet because anecdotally, I noticed it in my coaching program when I would put patients on the 7X method and they would still have some mystery bloating. I read the Eat Right for Your Blood Type book by John Didamo. I'm butchering his name.
Yeah, I don't
Diego.
know how to say it.
So I introduced that to, there's some restrictions on vegetables, there's some restrictions on, like, it has to do with the acidity in your stomach and your ancestry. So it's not always like, I wouldn't do just a straight blood type diet because that's not really 100% for everybody either. But if people are still struggling on the 7X method, and they can incorporate elements of the blood type diet to help them with their allergy or bloating.
Yeah, interesting. And have you worked with somebody who has like massive food sensitivities and allergies, or like mast cell activation, that has been successful to switch to his diet?
Yes. And the other caveat I need to mention is the candida overgrowth. Candida is super prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of clients with massive parasitic infections or massive, like major candida, like they open their mouth and their tongue is white, their throat is white, and they're wondering why they're putting on pounds.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you have a massive fungal overgrowth. So if you there, I don't know if you've read it's like the candidadiet.com. It'll give you all
Of
the foods.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's very similar. There's no dairy, no gluten. The only difference is that the 7X method has fruit. If you're fighting a fungal infection, you cannot have fruit. You can't. That's like maybe it depends on how many years you've had it. That was the main thing that I was sick with after the Cipro. And I think I went without alcohol for like 6 or 7 months and no fruit for like 8 years. Like I was really sick. And so definitely I would incorporate elements of the Candida diet if I think that that's an element of the mast cell, because I see people with that too, like people with parasitic, heavy metal, Candida overgrowth. I feel like there's a lot of things that I see a lot of, like, is that a trifecta? I think
Yeah.
I think there's like
Well,
4 fectas out there, 5 fectas, like people are
yeah.
really overloaded.
It's the low stomach acid, candida overgrowth, parasitic overgrowth, allergic to everything, copper toxicity. That's what I see a lot of I do mineral balancing. So that's what I see on there. That's like a factor in that. And then usually mold sensitive, lived in
Uh,
mold.
so lived in mold or coffee beans. Coffee beans are covered in mold. I've been ordering from a company, I don't make any commission on this, a company called Life Boost. It was created by a chiropractor and it's mycotoxin free. Gets delivered. I think I just got 6 bags of it for $100. But it's mold mycotoxin free, and the way they roast the beans make it the pH of water. So if that's a issue for people, like there's no sense in doing a mold detox and then drinking Starbucks. Like that's
Yeah, no.
like you can't. Yeah.
That's
So
one of my coffees that I talk about is exactly the same. You can probably see it back there. It's King coffee, and it's exactly like that, only it's infused with reishi spores. So it sounds like exactly the same.
yeah. Well, I'm allergic to mushrooms permanently from the Cipro. Like
Oh, even medicinal mushrooms?
yeah. Even like cross
Rough.
contamination in the kitchen. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I went to I went to ER like a year and a half ago.
Oh, wow. From a medicinal mushroom or a regular mushroom?
No, from I was eating dinner out. I'm like, hi, I have a mushroom allergy. You can't even cook it in the same pan or same place on the grill.
Uh-huh.
And my throat closed up and I went to the ER. It was
Ooh,
rough.
scary.
Super fun. Thank you, Cipro. Brought to you by Big
Yeah.
Pharma.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a few accounts that I'm thinking of that really talk about that drug and class of medications. And I mean, it can put you in a wheelchair. I still to this day hear people getting placed on it, which is insane that
Yeah. Yeah.
it's still being used.
I tell my patients all the time, I screen them for what drugs they've taken and what foods they eat and where they eat because it all adds up. But yeah, the people are really allergic to a lot of things. And I know the mold is definitely the mold and candida go together a lot too. It's so hard to detox, you know.
Yeah.
You have to put a lot of effort into it and people get, burn out. That's
Yeah.
probably, you can work with them for like 3 or 4 months and they really need like a year or 2 of detoxing
Oh
and they just
yeah.
get, like pill fatigue, or it's like it
It
gets expensive.
it took me a good 2 years to really feel like, okay, I don't think I have mold or I don't think I have mold. I don't think I'm in topical steroid withdrawal anymore. Like, I think this is just back to like regular me and the issues I had before all of that started.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's sometimes setting expectations with clients when I first get them is the most critical thing. I'm like, look, this is going to be a
Definitely.
journey. This is minimum of 6 months, like minimum. So,
Minimum 6 months
yeah.
would be just getting into it, I feel like.
Hmm.
Awesome. So tell us a bit more about your coaching practice. I know you have some really cool other stuff that you're doing on top of what we've already chatted about.
Yeah. So thank you. The 7X method is the cornerstone to everything I do. So all my coaching programs start with the diet, right? So happy gut, happy brain. And I have a men's and women's coaching group I do. It's a 10-week program. It's accompanied by online courses. So I test their adrenal glands because adrenal hormones are super important. Like people, they never hear from their doctors, and their gynecologist never says, oh, wow, you have no progesterone or estrogen, probably because your adrenal glands are taxed out. And like, oh, your DHA's dropped or whatever. Like they never talk about that. But your adrenal glands make testosterone, they make estrogen. When your ovaries retire in menopause, your adrenal glands take over. So if you don't have healthy adrenal glands, like I talked about, that peak in the morning and then it dies off at night when your melatonin turns on. If you don't have that, then your body will deposit fat on your stomach because fat aromatizes testosterone into estrogen. So if you're totally in like whatever adrenal fatigue or mitochondrial, like call whatever you want to call it, then your body is going to have this fat. So I've worked with women either who are like on the brink of menopause or been in the first year of menopause, and I've been able to restore their adrenal glands and they've been able to get rid of that. But if I have someone who's been in menopause like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and they're trying to get rid of this pooch, they're trying everything, they may have to do like, cool sculpting or something. But for the most part, I can help people with the sex hormones, with the adrenal hormones. And then I also bundle together a neurotransmitter test, which is like, I think it's probably the thing I'm most passionate about. If you can imagine me being more passionate, I'm part Italian. Like, what do you want? So I think it's criminal that psychiatrists, psychologists, they don't test brain chemistry before administering psychotropic drugs.
Yeah.
I had no idea that you can pee in a cup, send it to a lab, and they'll figure out your dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine, the norepinephrine, epinephrine ratio, glutamate, GABA, phenylethylamine, glycine. I mean, I can see sometimes I have people with like really bad gut inflammation with really high glycine levels, or I'll have a Parkinson's patient with like really low glycine levels, and that will cause like tremors. So I work with Parkinson's patients and I give them this test, and well, I can't take away Parkinson's. I can help relieve some of their symptoms. And it's incredible how vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and herbs can recalibrate your brain chemistry. Like I've had patients with before and after tests. I published a paper on it, a case study of a woman with 20 years eating disorders, OCD. She was a mom of like a 3-year-old, couldn't get off the couch after 4 p.m., needed a nanny, like just felt awful. But then she was working out like 4 hours a day, like because she had to do not 3 hours and 59 minutes. It had to be 4 hours. And then like restricting her food. Like she was a mess and she was tired of being a prisoner in her own body. So when we took this test, there's 10 analytes on it. Every single one was wrong, and either really high, really low. And I was like, good God, girl, like, how do you even get out of bed in the morning? Like, I don't even know how you function a little bit. So after we did 5 months and I gave her like 10 things, and she said within 2 weeks, she felt like she got off the hamster wheel, like the compulsions and all that. And it was amazing. You can do that. Most disease is vitamin and mineral deficiencies and circadian disruptions. Like, so there's tests out there that test that. So that's what I've been doing since 2021. I have the UpWoman tribe for men, a Biohacking Bootcamp for men. And then I do couples too. And then I just do the brain chemistry test for mental health patients who are not doing well with the SSRIs. Like I had a girl who had ADHD and depression and anxiety, and her family wanted to put her in an inpatient hospital. And I was like, let me just work with her first. And what did she have? She had super high dopamine. So what if they put her on Adderall? She would have had even higher dopamine that could have pushed her to psychosis, because she also had super elevated serotonin. And her glycine was like 4 times the normal, the high level. I was like, oh my God. Like if she would have gone to like a rehab, like who knows what would have happened.
They would have just trialed it and aired it.
Like again,
try this. Yeah, that's what happens.
And it's like, it's not like, how do you do that to someone who's already mentally struggling? Like, it's like criminal. Like, how do you push someone over the edge like that? Just when there's other options out there, drives me crazy. So I'm super passionate about that. So let's see, I have that. And then I have like a one-on-one coaching program for people who don't like have time I do like a weekly group thing on Tuesdays. Not everybody has time for that. So I do one-on-one for people who need to schedule around their schedule. And, I get really good results. Even men with testosterone, like there's such a prevalence of these testosterone replacement therapy. Like I see it online, like $149 a month, this and that. But like men are more than testosterone. Like they need estrogen, or sometimes they have really high estrogen. And you can't just look at testosterone and treat that. It shuts down the feedback loop from the pituitary to the testes. Like it's, they can work with me if they're willing to do some things and raise it naturally and not be dependent on a pharmaceutical and not have the side effects of gynecomastia. Like, there's side effects to long-term testosterone use that guys aren't told this. They
Right.
just start taking it. And then the next thing you know, they have man boobs and they need to get surgery. You know what I mean? They're like, it's just, there's so many things, but there's so many things that I see or that I've seen working in the hospital or see. And so I try to give people safe options, safe alternatives.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And I love that you work with men. Men aren't typically attracted to what I do, but I've had a lot of success actually as using like my boyfriend as a guinea pig. So I do like working with men as long as they're willing to make some of those commitments, which sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So
Yeah, I mean, I have like 10% men, like my ad responses are like
yeah,
10% men.
below.
But yeah, I do have some really great men who are super motivated. The ones I do get are great. And guys need help too.
Awesome.
The
Yeah.
thing is too, is like the way we're structured is men don't burn out until they get in their 60s. Whereas women, we're like late 30s, early 40s, because we have kids, we have a career. Some women are going to school, working and raising a kid. I don't know how they do that. I have a couple friends that have done that. But like, no wonder we burn out early, and our menopause is before the andropause. So I tend to get men who have worked their whole life. They've done nothing but work, and then they retire and they're a hot mess and they can't even enjoy the millions of dollars that they've got to spend, Those are
Yeah.
my guys,
Yeah, definitely. And so since you're also a physical therapist, this is kind of my new avenue since I hurt my back was, okay, how am I standing? How am I breathing? How is my diaphragm doing? Like, what is my body doing all of the day? How I'm moving contribute to what happened there? So what do you see in terms of like even your virtual practice? Do you evaluate somebody's posture in that way? Do you look at like, how are you holding your tongue in your mouth? Like all of that kind of stuff.
I'm totally having bad posture when I'm on telehealth. I do it all the time. I'm slouched over. Um, I do it in my regular clinic, but I do bring attention to it when I bring people on. I have a 90-minute intake process where I talk about everything, and then I let people text me all the time. So with that 90-minute initial evaluation really makes people comfortable. They tell me things they don't tell their spouses. It's like, I'm like a hairdresser. I know all the secrets. But for sure, I can see trauma in people's faces, and I can see the way they're held. Like people have been through a lot of trauma. I can see that they're like literally protecting their heart all the time. Like I see their posture like that, So for sure, standing up straight. I tell people when you're standing, like pretend you're going to take a picture, because most people, because we sit, we get tight hip flexors. And then when we stand up, they're still tight, and it causes anterior pelvic tilt, meaning that like we're sticking our butt out like a bikini model. And so I tell people, when you're standing, pretend that you're taking a picture, because we always suck in our stomach, and that will bring our pelvis back to neutral. And that'll engage your stomach to take pressure off your back. That's, pretend you're taking a picture. That's what I say. Pretend all the time. Draw their stomach in, engage your core, because it's so bad. And then women with pelvic floor dysfunction.
Yes.
Sitting cross-legged and slouched is horrible for our pelvic floor. So I do talk about that. There's women who have pain just putting in a tampon, And there are like devices for that. And then also I recommend frequently the PeriFit, PERIFIT. It's like this big, and you put it in your vagina and you play video games with your vagina muscles. Yeah, it's
Okay.
hilarious. I'm like driving a car with my
Awesome.
vagina. Yeah. But it helped me coordinate. I didn't realize how much pressure or how much reliance I had on my stomach muscles, and I wasn't properly engaging my pelvic floor, which is because we sit and it gets lax. And to retrain those muscles, I think it was like $150 on Amazon, or you can get it wherever. But that was a good one to help me retrain. You can do it for women who've given birth. Like there's settings for urinary incontinence, and it lets you recalibrate every time you try it. The pelvic floor is super important. It holds all your organs, and even guys who have erectile dysfunction have pelvic floor issues,
That's interesting. Yeah. I've never had a child, so I've never really gone down this rabbit hole. But then when I hurt my back, it was like, okay, I know this is from sitting all day, and like the way that I'm sitting and the way that I'm like, I kind of was like sitting forward, not so much slumped over, but more like this. So that's brought a lot of awareness to like how I'm holding myself through the day, just sitting literally. And then also found so many different accounts, as well as you, who gave me some exercise, like really easy exercises to just do every day, like a couple times a day, to really start to strengthen that.
Yeah, it's a habit.
Yeah, exactly. So that's very helpful. Awesome. So you said earlier you do this telomere test. What does that entail? How does that work?
Okay, so you just get it shipped to your house, and you prick your finger with like a little diabetes thing, put it on paper, and then you send it to the lab. And then the company is out of New Zealand, or the process that they use. So they look at your predicted telomere length, and they look to see if you're aging rapidly, or if you're taking care of yourself. And it gives you like a little scale. It has a turtle and a rabbit. So you want to be a turtle. You want to be aging slowly. It makes it easy. It's like, and then it gives you your calculation of what your biological age is. It's easy to read. So that's the important thing, that when a patient gets it, they're like, okay. I mean, I use this other company called Physicians Lab for all the sex hormones and stress hormones. They're out of Boca, as an alternative to the Dutch test. I don't know if you've ever seen the Dutch test, but it's a freaking nightmare. I got that back when I first got into this business, and I had it on a patient, and I was like, how am I supposed to teach? I was like, I need to book a session with the lab to learn this. Like, and I'm like certified in all this stuff. Like, how does a layman figure it out? Like, so.
Well, I think that's the point. They want you to work with a practitioner. I actually just redid a Dutch test, so we'll see what it comes up with.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah, but I would love to know the alternative. Is it cheaper than the Dutch test too, or is it the same?
No, it's cheaper.
Perfect.
Cheaper and easier to read. Yeah, I had to change all my online courses to incorporate this test, but it's so much easier. It just has little speed dials, like a speedometer. So you know what's high and what's low. It's like, it couldn't be easier.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll look into it. Send me the link.
Yeah.
Perfect. So you have this phenomenal story. You've got a book, you've got a thriving practice. Tell us what is on the horizon for you. How can people find you and work with you?
Great. So my Instagram is 7X Method. Then I have a business WhatsApp that is 786. Oh, darn. I got to remember it. I think it's 974-8773. So I have a business Instagram. You can message me on, business WhatsApp. You can message me on the Instagram, 7X Method, or you can go on to my website. It's drsarahdoyle.com, DRSARAHDOYLE.com. And you can book a free discovery call. So there's like 3 different opportunities. You click a button, and I ask for a credit card, and here's why. Because I do Facebook advertising. And so for me to keep it's to get the committed people. Yeah, you put a credit card. If you don't show up for your appointment and you take my time and I call you 3 times and don't answer, I bill your credit card $25. If you show up on time for your free call, it's free.
Awesome. I love that. That's great.
I'm a disciplinarian. I think I learned that from, I'm a black belt. I trained 10 years in Taekwondo, and I learned from this
Oh,
Korean
nice.
guy. Yeah, he was so hardcore. He was so hardcore and a real disciplinarian. So I also learned, I used to do that when I was in real estate because people want to look at houses with a chick, you know? And so
Oh.
so I used to take a check for $500, cash it, and then if they closed on something with me, I would apply it towards my commission and give them a $500 discount. So yeah, I learned that in real estate to get rid of the tire kickers.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't do any ads, so I usually don't run into people that don't show up for their 15-minute call, but I will adopt that if I do run ads. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it gets the tire kickers out. So don't
Yeah.
worry, I ask for your credit card, but if you show up, it's free.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, today's been really insightful. I've been telling a lot of my clients, especially those with really chronic gut issues and food sensitivities, to try out the 7X method. I haven't had any feedback yet, but if I do, I will definitely let you know how they're doing. And
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And I hope to see you soon, hopefully in Miami somewhere.
Sounds great. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. I am just so thrilled that you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This has been a huge passion project for me and super therapeutic on top of that, helping me to use my voice and connect with other like-minded individuals. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please like and subscribe. Please share on social media or with your audience or friends or loved ones. I truly appreciate it. It does take a lot of time and financial costs to run the podcast, and it is not a moneymaker, let me tell you. So if you are enjoying this, I would truly appreciate your support just by sending me a post, a like, and a subscribe. Thank you so much.